I sat by my child and begged God to take him away. That was probably the hardest thing.
Honestly, maybe I shouldn't say this. You might even cut it out. All this grieving, all this thinking, crying, sobbing, like you say, falling into a pit. It's all selfish. Right now, at this moment, I'm not worried. Well, a tumor, well, a strike, but I'm not crying now.
There's no more treatment for you. You're being transferred to hospice.
Yeah, what about folk medicine? And there was still some hope. I made the decision about the amputation. I'll even miss this hospital. No, well, maybe someone will understand or something.
I even thought if he came again, I would go through it all again. I went through the journey with him.
God forbid. I've heard a lot from doctors. A whole lot. It's their own fault. They kept going around and giving kids cancer. That's it.
Still, later you realize that it was meant to happen this life.
What, are you supposed to be here, or did something just show up out of nowhere?
Thank you very much for agreeing to this interview. I'll be honest, not everyone is able to talk about what they've been through. I'd like to ask you how it all began. Tell us about the time when Mark was still a baby, when he had just been born.
Let's start with the fact that Mark is gone. That's how it was when he was born. I mean, he was like that from birth. We had a very active child, very smart too. Of course, I had already experienced what it's like to become a mom much earlier, since this is my second child. When you already have a child with a relative, your approach to it is a little different. For my husband, this was his first child. You can ask him how he felt.
It was an amazing feeling. I was afraid of being a bad father.
He was really scared.
What did I want to do? I was upset at the gender reveal party that I was having a boy. But when I first actually touched him, I didn't want to do anything else anymore. I really wanted a boy after all. He was a little troublemaker, never listened to anyone, always did everything his own way.
We'd even managed to take him to daycare. He was about a year and 3 months old, something like that. We would go together with him for a couple of hours. Basically, soon after that, we found out about his illness.
What was the day like when you found out about your son's diagnosis? Do you remember that day?
We were chasing after that diagnosis. It wasn't exactly simple for us. We went somewhere and they told us. And there, just like many parents talk to each other when they're in the hospital, it was kind of a shock that my child was found to have one illness or another. But we spent 3 weeks searching for this illness. Not knowing was scarier than knowing the reason why our child, who used to walk and grow up healthy, suddenly stopped walking altogether. We were looking for that reason. We had a feeling. After about 2 weeks of searching in a useless environment, going through free but pointless tests, we already knew that something serious was going on. When I just typed the symptoms into Google, it simply came up as a spinal cord tumor. There was nothing specific, but it said spinal cord tumor. I probably knew that even 2 days before the MRI.
What symptoms did he have?
He just stopped moving around.
Most likely, he was in pain because he cried. You could see it was hard for him to stand up on his feet. Well, when he was still able to stand, Mark had constipation, he was sweating, his head was sweating. I think he also had a slight fever, but it was there. So we kept running around. Yeah, and no one could give us a diagnosis. At least it was something, but we were just exhausted from our child's suffering and from all this uncertainty. So when we finally got a referral to the hospital, we were admitted. Yeah, and my husband, well, he already understood what was going on with him, but I still didn't get it yet. I was just reading the labels on the test tubes, seeing what possible diagnoses they were considering. There was this poliomyelitis, and I was terrified. And then when they did a spinal tap on him, they said the fluid didn't look very good. There. And then the MRI. Then the next day, they took us for more tests, and they basically said that most likely he had a tumor with metastases, and there was no trauma involved. He was hospitalized in Minsk in the neurosurgery department because he needed urgent surgery on his spinal cord.
Did you have hope that it was a mistake? Because it happens quite often that diagnostics can be misleading.
No, that rarely happens, first of all.
But it does happen.
That's 1% out of 100. In 100 cases, it would be just one case. Well, diagnostics aren't harmful, but it wasn't like we thought, oh, maybe it's a mistake. No, for us, it was just when the neurosurgeon removed the tumor, he specifically said there was a 90% chance it was neuroblastoma. And for me, that word was already familiar at that time. Well, I kind of knew what neuroblastoma was. I'd already kind of indirectly, but I had already encountered it in my life. And, well, that boy turned out fine. And, you look at all this and think, well, everything will be fine this time, too. And the doctor even said, oh, so it's not neuroblastoma. This can be treated.
Yeah, the doctor immediately said, it's 90% likely to be that, especially since they're connected with that kind of thing there, too. We were waiting for the histology results, not to find out what it was, but specifically to find out what stage we were already at. We were just hoping it wouldn't be stage 4 or something like that. We were only waiting to find out the stage. When the histology results finally came in, of course, that's when they told us it was stage 4, high risk. There's this bad gene that's specifically associated with MYC in this case.
When you found out about the diagnosis, what treatment did they offer you?
At that time, the only option was the protocol from, I think, 2018. Just like everywhere else, in Germany, in Israel, in Belarus, in Russia, everywhere, chemotherapies combined, 8 days and 5 days. High dose. They teach transplantation to autotransplantations. At first, we didn't know about immunotherapy, but I had already read about it. But, well, for us, it was already too late. They said it was too late to do immunotherapy. Well, otherwise, we were just like everyone else, like everywhere.
Yeah, they have a unified treatment protocol specifically for this diagnosis, so they told us right away what kind of treatment it would be. Of course, everyone has a chance. We never really doubted that, especially since, had my husband already mentioned, we had a very good example. A friend's child was also sick in 2016, and now he lives a great life and has fully recovered. So we didn't even have any doubts, not for a second, that he would recover.
You started chemotherapy. You completed the course. Did you notice any improvements?
Yes, right away, from the very first day, even after it was removed. My wife was sending updates. I was at home, and my wife was in the hospital, sending me videos of how he was already able to squat down. He had been completely bedridden. The child, he was already able to squat down. A month later, when I was about to be admitted to the hospital, he was already sitting up, kicking his legs around.
That was an enormous effort, too. The doctors immediately said that Mark might never walk. I started looking into what could be done about it. They said only physical therapy massage would help, and I worked with him every day. I did massages to help Mark get back on his feet again. And when we were transferred to the Borov-Lignani hospital, the doctor would come in, and Mark was already standing, and he was even basically crawling. Everyone was so shocked that in such a short time, Mark had already started to recover.
So there were improvements. You believed in a miracle, and it was happening right before your eyes, and you didn't even consider that things could turn out any other way.
For me, for example, I'm not a naive person. I understand that other children who walk through the doors of the oncology ward with stage 4 cancer, only 20% will make it out. That's one thing. That's just the general statistics, everywhere. I kind of understood that, The moment I started to believe was when we went to St. Petersburg for the MIBG scan, and they told us, you're all clear. Nothing is lighting up.
Everything was clear.
Oh, clear? And that was only after the 3rd round of chemo. It was just the 3rd round of chemo. I stayed with many other parents, but no one was clear after the 3rd round of chemo. No one.
We even teared up right there in the hallway. It was so clear. We just couldn't believe it. The doctor told us there's nothing there. Like, how could there be nothing? I remember how I felt. It was clear.
The only thing is, we actually had really good chances. The only gene, this NMYC, if that's the right name, was positive for us. That has a negative effect on the outcome. It has a bad effect. If it had been negative, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now, I'm sure of it. The tricky thing is, when this MYC gene is amplified and positive, the disease relapses more often. And relapses are always bad. That's never a good thing. And what's more, early relapses happen even more often. If the relapses are late, like after a year or two, then the chances are still high. Again, chances for what exactly? It's not clear.
Well, an early relapse is also bad because the body hasn't had time to recover from the previous one. The treatment and naturally the immune system are weakened. It hasn't recovered yet. And then comes a new round of chemo, and the body just can't handle it anymore. So the chemo doesn't suppress the tumor as effectively because the body has already adapted a bit to the chemo, and so has the tumor. That's why, as a rule, if there are early relapses, the treatment might not work anymore, which is basically what happened in our case.
You mentioned that everything was clear. You thought things were getting back to normal, that everything would be fine, and you believed in that. But what happened next? How did it happen?
I'm an optimist by nature, of course. I probably believed in it even more than my husband did. He's more of a strategist. He read everything, thought things through. Is a realist. A realist, yes. I was living in the moment. I saw that everything was fine. We raised money for Korzaba. We went through the Korzaba treatment course. In the interval between, I think after the third or maybe the fourth cycle, I can't remember exactly. And we came home, so we had a break. Well, Marco and I were here in the kitchen doing something, and he accidentally fell off the corner here. He didn't seem to hurt himself badly, but I started to notice that he began to limp a little. Then we decided to take him to the hospital to check what was wrong with his leg. He kept limping, and then I noticed he was kind of scooting around on his butt. We went there, and the doctor came out with these really wide eyes, and I could already tell from his expression that something was wrong. It was like he had never seen anything like that before. Well, that's what I read in his eyes. And he just looks at me with these big eyes and asks, "What happened?" He says, "There's a part of the bone missing." I call my husband, and by then we already realized that something must have gone wrong. And that was it. We immediately called the doctor, and the ER doctor even spoke with our oncologist. So that was it. We packed our things, and the next morning we went to Minsk for an examination. They did an MRI and a CT scan and told us there was a tumor, and part of the bone was already missing. No.
Not exactly a tumor, but there were some changes. Something like that, they weren't sure, like out of 100 cases. And we understood that a doctor can't make a diagnosis based only on the scan. So they sent us for another biopsy, or we waited for it for a long time.
A long time?
2 weeks. Oh, right. And also, let's say we had some acquaintances in medicine who called and asked the lab directly, bypassing everyone else. A doctor never has the right to say what's going on there.
What's happening?
I had some connections, and it didn't stain. It didn't stain. Maybe 6 times. Neuroblastoma. It didn't stain. So there was this hope, some kind of hope, that it wasn't neuroblastoma. But on the other hand, as the doctor said, if it's not neuroblastoma, but say it's sarcoma or something else, some other kind of cancer, that means Mark's DNA is damaged, and different cancers will haunt him throughout his life. But it didn't stain, and only at the micromolecular level, they somehow found out that it was actually a relapse. That took about 2.5 weeks, I think.
That's a long time, isn't it?
Well, we already suspected it, so we knew we had to start chemo. And it turned out that, apparently, the hospital didn't have the chemo drugs.
had just left the hospital. They sent us home while we waited for the results. And basically, while we were on our way home, I left my phone number. When the results were ready, we were also waiting for the
tumor marker?
Yeah, the tumor marker, we were waiting for that too. So that's kind of the first thing, right? The thing you can check quickly, specifically our tumor marker. And basically, when they sent me the results, that was probably the hardest blow.
Well, for me, it wasn't that hard. First of all, the tumor markers weren't that elevated. But we know kids who are also being treated for neuroblastoma, and they go through this protocol too. After dinutumatuxib, the tumor marker can go up. That doesn't mean anything at all. It was. Well, I don't know. At that time, I kind of felt the same as I do now. Right now, I don't worry anymore. Either I've already come to terms with it, or back then. The hardest part was the waiting. Sitting in the kitchen, waiting for the doctor to call and say, "Come in tomorrow." We realized that this was actually an even bigger blow than hearing the diagnosis for the first time. Yeah.
It was intense.
A lot harder. At first, well, it's a tumor, it's inoperable, nobody really understands, nobody reads about it. You come in, the doctor says something about the odds, he says there are chances, but when they tell you it's a relapse, well, with a relapse, there are basically no chances at all.
We understood exactly what we were up against. Honestly, I think I was depressed for 2 or 3 days. Mark was only with his dad, and I was just on medication. Sometimes his dad would bring him to me. It was just such a heavy blow.
Yeah, you held on for a week, and then I came straight to the hospital, and you went home.
Yeah, let me catch my breath now.
What, are you coming here? Come on. Did you feel something while you're at home?
Yeah, just a bit of weakness.
Well, there's nothing wrong with someone crying. You don't even have to cut out moments like these. After all, you're real people.
So why is that exactly?
Go through the motions. I don't get it.
Everyone has their own level of emotional organization, so...
Well, maybe I'll cry more when it comes to just death, but I'm not crying right now.
I had been following your blog for a long time. I watched everything that was happening with you back when Mark was alive. I watched your stories, I read your posts, everything. I'll admit, I shed a tear too, because it's so hard to watch when you have a little child and they get sick, and then suddenly they're just gone. It's really hard. It's hard for you, but it's also not easy for those watching from the other side of the screen because they're witnessing it and empathizing with you. I've seen very few people like you in my life because most, when something like this happens to them, they can't even get through it together. They get divorced, they fight, there are constant arguments. They just can't get through this grief together, can't walk through it side by side. But you did. But I understand that behind that strength, there's a lot of pain. What surprised me most about this whole story is that despite all that pain, you managed to turn it into light, and you shared that light with others. But as usual, there's always someone in the family who will start judging for not wearing a mourning scarf, for the fact that you process your pain differently than they think you should, for getting back up after you've fallen. I know you've faced this kind of judgment. Tell me, this judgment, did it come from strangers or was it from close people who have been around you throughout your life? Did they allow themselves to say such things? Things that weren't exactly tactful, directed at you?
I'll go first. Well, maybe they're just jealous of us.
Jealous of what?
Well, maybe. How else can you explain it? What else? Well, we came across it. I came across it, let's say, not just online, but also among people around me. Well, maybe they're jealous that things are working out for us like this. But how else could it be? I don't know.
As for close people, I probably haven't faced that, thank God. Yes, there were people, but why did I run into a contradiction here? It's It's one thing when someone writes to you who, let's say, wasn't walking side by side with us and doesn't know the whole situation, just knows that the child is gone, and here she is either singing on camera or just going out in public. But it's a whole different story when, for example, someone was with us, helped us, and now, let's say, she sees me smiling and starts judging me for it. So here, as I analyze it, I realize that maybe this person didn't really help at all, and that person isn't genuinely happy that we managed to get back up and move forward. There are actually a lot of people around us who really do send me personal messages saying, "Tatiana, I'm so glad to see you smiling. I'm happy that you're alive." So that's truly genuine. People are happy for us. I can probably say, based on my own analysis, that the people who write something negative, or honestly, they just don't have that kind of strength. And that probably envy that they don't have that strength. She wouldn't have been able to do it like that. And I don't judge people like that. It's just that she expresses her own pain through this kind of negativity. Something she probably wouldn't have been able to do herself.
Well, but what's the accepted way to look at it?
Yeah, where are those written rules? I mean, someone came up with all this, right? But it's all social. Yeah, it's all imposed on people. Like, you look at songs, some of them say things like, "I can't live." It's like, through poetry, I feel like all of this is just forced on people. I see a lot of videos, they come up all the time, where people have also faced their own griefs, their own misfortune. And when they post with tears and all, people feel sorry for them. And that's easier. It's easier for people to feel sorry than to actually support someone or be happy for another person, like, wow, they're so strong, they managed to overcome it. But I don't think that's how it should be. That's why people tend to react more negatively when someone manages to get up and move on. So
It turns out that they put themselves in your shoes and realized they couldn't allow themselves to do that. They wouldn't be able to. And because of that, they start to lash out with this kind of hate.
absolutely, because I've heard so many times, like, "Oh, did you hear that so-and-so's child got sick?" And someone says, "Thank God it wasn't mine." People still, even involuntarily, put themselves in that situation. It's almost subconscious. So of course, some people just bottle it up inside and start reacting in their own way. Some people just genuinely feel sympathy.
There are parents like us who have lost a child and, let's say, smile more at the world.
Such a journey.
Smile, for example, at 3 of them. I know a lot of others too. Thankfully, I spent 2.5 years there. And there are a lot of stories there that, unfortunately,
Good, my gut.
yeah, it's true that many people hide. But there are 3 different families, including ours, who, well, how exactly should I put this into words?
Keep on living.
Keep on living. And who's gonna judge me, or what? Do they know how I live, how I get up in the morning, or what? They see a little clip, just a snippet. Well,
Here too, people try to judge us for that, saying we're godless, yeah, that it's somehow obvious, like we're just tossing the kid aside. My husband answered her, like, what's so godless about it?
yeah, what's so godless about it? But the fact that kids have been sick for 2
Years.
years, that's okay, right? A lot of parents, I'm telling you, they stopped believing in God after their children passed away. Many of them. I even heard recently one dad even turned away. I don't judge him because something like that happened to him, of course.
Stop believing in God?
Me? No.
Yeah, you didn't stop believing.
Well, God. Everyone has their own idea of God.
I'll say that at first, it seems to me it's such an emotional reaction when something like this happens, you know? Like, that's it. There is no God. As if it's something you can't get rid of, maybe. But still, later you realize that it was meant to happen this way. I mean, we did everything we could.
Well, people just try to look for answers in faith. Like trying to justify why children get sick. Why does this happen? A lot of parents use words like that. Why, my child? So basically, they're shifting the blame. They take the responsibility off themselves and put it on someone else.
We never
said that.
No one ever asked us, why did this happen to Mark? So consciously, we didn't put that on anyone else. We just kept moving forward with it.
Honestly, people are foolish by nature. They don't understand when a child is sick, And sudden death is something else entirely. It's completely different. When you're standing over the grave and you think, well, maybe today. Well, not literally over the grave, but you look and it's all so terrifying. It's just so frightening that...
I sat by my child and begged God to take him.
Yes. Well, you know, that's how it is for many people. When they're not in intensive care, but rather when they're conscious and more or less aware, it's really, really scary. Sudden death, on the other hand, is a whole different thing, completely unexpected. There was no sign that anything bad was about to happen. And then suddenly with a car...
Hit by the car.
Yeah, ran out into the road, a car. That's a whole different story. And the feelings you go through are different too. In that case, you don't even understand what happened or how. But here, when you've gone through all that suffering, when so many needles have been stuck into that little hand, so many bitter tears have been shed, when he doesn't want to do anything anymore, but he has to, like eat, and then his skin is peeling off. Oh, it's terrifying.
Well, because, yeah, they even told us, there are no more treatments for you. You're being transferred to hospice. But the good thing is, from hospice, they actually let us go home. We were basically told we were going home to die.
But once we were back at home, that's when we began experimenting with various herbal teas and traditional folk remedies. We started using folk medicine, and the child's skin turned pink, just like a healthy child's. And there was some hope. Actually, there was probably even more hope than before.
Yeah, even when we got home, we didn't even stay at home. I feel like God sent me that follower, the foreign woman who connected us. She even paid for everything, and I took it all for myself. They told me exactly what to give Mark, and I'm grateful for that too, because we were home for about 2 weeks, right?
2 weeks?
We lived happily for about 2 weeks too, so there was some hope.
Yeah, it wasn't like... He didn't experience any burning sensation from the pain. Absolutely nothing of that sort ever occurred. Due to his inherent nature, he was always able to endure pain.
Yeah.
Either he got used to it, or, well, he just endured it, because he had a broken leg. By the time his leg was amputated, he already had a fracture. He was running and jumping around for a week. Then professors came who were deciding whether his leg could be saved. But really, it was more about saving his life. But parents always want to save the body. Of course. Well, in this sense, parents are a little naive, and there are a lot of them like that. But common sense tells you that life is better than just having one leg, right? Especially now, with all these new technologies. So everyone kept coming to try and convince me. I was the one who made the decision about the amputation. I just kept making my wife doubt her own choice. I said, see, you can't make a clear decision, so I'm making the decision. And I was the one who decided on the amputation. And then the doctors, the professors came in. They explained to me why the amputation was necessary. I said, will you come into my room? No, but why? I said, no, you go in. They go in, and he's hopping around on a broken leg. They're just standing there, like with their hands, with their eyes, like, how is that possible? Well, that's how it is. Doesn't it hurt him? I said, I don't know. He doesn't say if it hurts or not. But he's hopping on it.
So after which shift was that? How many hours? I think the incubation surgery lasted 3 or 4 hours. And he had just been transferred from the operating room to intensive care. They already called us and said, come over. Mark isn't lying down. He just got out of surgery. He's all ready.
Because he's a real trooper.
He started doing chores like that. And when it was the 3rd day, I came then when my husband was still in the hospital, but I arrived on the day of the surgery and he was recording a video. He went to get Mark, and 3 days later, Mark was already shouting, let's go.
Let's go.
All right, let's go.
Let's go, just as long as it's not in the ICU. That's it, we went. The next day, the ICU doctor came to check on him, to see how he was doing. She was supposed to help distribute the load on his body, but there was no leg there. She comes in and he's jumping on his legs, happy that he has a bed. But how is that not allowed? So what am I supposed to do with him? Admit it or what?
That, of course, was quite a sight. I don't think anything can stop Markov, not even having just one leg. He kept hopping around just like before.
Well, she did make it easier, at least in the end. Well,
It's easier.
it got easier.
Like a rock, right? His leg had gotten so big it was much easier for him. No.
Well, that's awesome. When we were in the hospital, I remember saying, we'll end up missing this hospital.
Even though we already didn't like it much.
Well, nobody wanted to see it. Everything happened so fast for us. I remember saying that phrase back then, that we'd end up missing this hospital.
Yeah, and when Mark was gone, we sat there thinking, we'd gladly go back now.
Yeah, that's true.
You'd never guess that you've been through such grief. Just looking at you, it's hard to believe you didn't lose your mind. We
Have nothing left, Mark.
Well, maybe that's true.
Yeah, the way he handled everything so bravely. Well, how could you not lose your mind? In daily life, Mark always lifted us with his bright smile and life positivity. That's why we keep going this way. We understand that, yeah, nothing can be brought back. The pain remains. It's always there, no matter what.
So, really, why should I take off this mask? And for whom? Is anyone going to understand me or what? I'll say it. I smile, I joke. Because my problems are my own, and nobody cares. When it comes to someone else, no matter how much you empathize with that person, it's not the same kind of empathy that a parent of a sick child feels. Is that like a myopathy of the soul? It's just different. That's something I just don't understand, for example. Well, maybe I shouldn't say this, and maybe it'll even get cut out, but I kinda envy them a little. I mean, when Mark was alive, at least there was Yashan. He was great. But for us, everything was kinda transparent, like 20%.
Only 20%? Yeah.
I mean, yeah, the amount is huge, honestly. Yeah, believe it or not, it is actually real.
Because we even talked about it. It's our pain, specifically as parents. Even grandparents can't understand it the way we do.
Yeah. Maybe we should start filming already. By the way, I actually took that on board myself. Maybe I've already lost my marbles over there. We don't know.
So yeah, the only thing we can really accept is each other.
No, seriously, it hits hard. Of course it hits hard. How could it not? Well, I have my work environment, for example. You just try to learn something, pick up something new. You just try not to think about it, really. It's like quitting smoking, for example, like I did. If you're busy with something, you don't smoke, which means you're not thinking about bad stuff. But when you're just sitting around doing nothing, you start overthinking things. And of course, then you end up scrolling through TikTok and leaving comments like all those other unhappy people saying, no, we're really worried. It's all because of idleness. You need to keep yourself busy. Do something. Learn something new. You have to distract yourself.
Try something new. Dive into something different. Basically, keep your mind occupied. But at the same time, I have to say, like when that follower wrote to me when I was really overwhelmed, so to speak, I realized that I hadn't given myself time to actually feel sad, to really go through it. That is, to actually allow myself to go through that process of feeling bad. And for several months, it started to pull me in, this depression. And I guess maybe because I have some inner strength, I started to pull myself out of it. I realized that we can't really escape from this anyway. Like when something happens, we try to hide from it, as if it wasn't happening to me. But you have to work through it. So during those couple of months, I was really working through my own state. Like you try to somehow process certain moments and channel them in a more positive direction. And that's why at some point it just clicked for me. I felt such relief, like I could finally breathe out. And on the contrary, now I feel open to something new, like taking up something new. It's like I finally took a breath, a gulp of fresh air.
What do you dream about now?
Dream? That's dangerous. You know, you catch yourself thinking when... Max, well, he was always running around. He's a hyperactive kid. He was even diagnosed with hyperactivity. He just lived his life there, day after day. The hospital, all the nurses, orderlies, and cleaning ladies would say, the only place that kid's feet hadn't been was the ceiling. 1 foot, 2 feet, he didn't crawl, he walked. The only place he hadn't been was the ceiling. And before he got sick. Well, my wife, that was everything. I'd come home and I'll never forget, she was just completely worn out. It was just too much, it was chaos. He didn't really climb into drawers or anything, but he was everywhere. I spent Sundays with him, and by the end of the day, I was more exhausted than after a whole week at work. And that was just one day.
Well, that is.
Really something, yeah? And yeah, I'd tell him, like, don't run around. And just like that. Mark stopped running around because he stopped walking altogether. And now, just sitting here, dreaming about something. Of course, I'd love to meet up, to hug, to talk. But you can take that 2 ways, meeting up. I mean, how can you even meet? There's only one way to meet, by dying. But dying, do we really need that?
Maybe we do. Right now, we don't really have any plans. I guess for now, Marco and I, we've probably learned not to live just for one day at a time. Not to make plans, you know? Not even for the next day. So I guess we haven't really thought about it. We're just living and we're happy. This day that's come, you know, we woke up in the morning and thank God for that. So for now, I guess we don't really have any plans, wishes, or dreams.
It's been more than half a year since your son passed away. Tell me, has it ever happened? Have you gotten those kinds of insensitive questions from people close to you? Like, so, are you gonna try for another child?
And it's not just people close to us saying this, but even writing it. To me, that question, or really that kind of comment, the way people write it, is just not appropriate at all. Because in the end, whatever's meant to happen by God will happen. Of course, we went through such a difficult time in our lives. It really took a toll on our health too, because the nerves, the stress, the hospitals, all of that definitely affected us. I believe that. If it doesn't happen with the motherland, then it's all in God's hands. Honestly, I usually don't even answer questions like that. No.
No one ever said anything like that to me. It's more than that. I was the one who said it, not anyone else. But I was talking about the child, back when we were running, while they were still little. But then, when, let's say, Mark was gone. I guess it's normal when someone just wants to, but I want exactly the same child. But there won't be another one like that. It'll be a different one. And then you start to doubt, do I need a different one? But I want that one. But there won't be another like him. Well, that's the thing here. Because all this grieving, all this thinking, crying, sobbing, like you say, falling into a pit. It's all selfish. We don't know how he is there, or if there even is a there at all. If there isn't anything there, if there's no there at all, then really there's no reason to grieve at all. So what's the point of grieving then? And if there is something there, if there's some huge life after this, well, is it easier there or harder? We just don't know, do we?
If it's easier there, how would we know?
Yeah. This grief, it's all selfish. I even caught myself thinking, probably on the 2nd or 3rd day after his death, just sitting there, hugging myself. But really, you're just sitting there being selfish, because you don't know. Maybe he's actually doing great over there. For those who believe in an afterlife, it turns out he's doing well there. And if there is no afterlife, then what's the point of suffering over it? That would mean we're all empty, soulless, just empty. If someone dies, that's it. They're gone. So what's the point? Or else they just waste away in a single day. They basically put themselves in the grave, suffering for 20 years. Of course, everyone has their own truth. This is ours. Maybe it's wrong for some people.
By the way, this is also about society. You see a lot of that too. I've seen people, some throw themselves onto the coffin, some end up living at the cemetery. I watched all that and I thought, well, we already knew where things were hemming. And I probably thought I would react the same way. But no. I think we turned out to be stronger than all of that. Well,
First of all, he's buried a bit far away, about 25 kilometers.
so what? There's a bus that goes there.
Yeah, but you have to get up and take the bus. I think.
It's about something else entirely.
Well, of course, but really, why?
My husband and I sat down and talked, like, what can we even change?
Yeah, so what? We'll go and cry. That was loud. So,
We can only change ourselves or our approach to this situation that's already happened. What happened? We can't bring back or change. Yeah, while they were alive, we did everything we could and even more, as they told me.
yeah. We treated him beyond what was possible. When Mark ended up in the ICU, it was probably July 6th. He was admitted to the ICU, and even then, it was only because of the test results. He wasn't in any pain.
Low oxygen saturation.
Low blood oxygen saturation, very low. They took him to the ICU. And I have to add, well, a couple of days went by and nothing was working anymore. Chemo wasn't working, nothing was working. I was like, no, this won't do. I told the intensivist, we need to make it so he can come out to the room. I don't want it to be like this. How so? At least to see.
Dad really blamed himself for the fact that I was lying down and Mark got hit in front of me. He says he didn't even see him here.
He heard my words. That is, above this,
We actually went.
Oh.
Levi's, we went 3 times a day. And Mark, it was a miracle. By the way, it really was a miracle because they said Mark didn't have much time left.
95% lung damage. Not exactly damage, more like water, fluid, something like that. Like pneumonia or not. Well,
Basically, they were affected.
and Mark was in intensive care for 4 or 5 days. And then suddenly that was it. And he pulled through.
We even made it home. I'm telling you, it was such a miracle. We kept saying that Mark hadn't been home for more than half a year. He just hadn't been home. My husband and I hadn't seen each other. We only crossed paths when we switched places at the hospital. And I'm saying, how is it possible? What happened that he even left the room? He came with us and we even made it home. He even lived at home for 2 weeks. That was truly a miracle. Yeah.
I think that even when he finally passed away on the morning of August 1st, we were all right there by his side during those early hours.
We saw him that day, yes. Well,
He said he was really unwell, but I didn't see that he was that bad.
my mother's heart, I just knew that he wasn't feeling well. I already had a feeling about it.
Yeah, you brought trouble on yourself, damn it.
What advice could you give to those who have faced a situation similar to yours? What would you recommend? What advice would you give to parents who have learned about a difficult diagnosis for their child?
I think that in any case, yes, you should never lose hope. Especially when your child is by your side, they really feel it, whether it's mom or dad, but especially the mother's bond. They really sense it if their mom is worried. And I noticed this with Mark. When I was really worried, Mark would also get very fussy. So you should still try to stay positive and believe only in the best outcome. Even, as I said, yes, even at home, when everyone said things were bad, we still kept believing. And I think that's why we lived happily. Even those 2 or 3 years, we lived happily. Yes, there were some really tough moments. But the main thing is not to lose heart.
If you actually had the rare chance to say something meaningful to your child, if you truly had the opportunity to meet them face to face and talk for a while, what exactly would you want to say?
That's a tough question. I think about it for days. I don't know. I don't even know what.
Well, probably, yes. The thing is that Mark didn't really talk like that. So we didn't really have conversations with him where we could talk about something. Just, of course, that we love him. I even think if he came back again, I would go through that question with him all over again.
God forbid.
Simply so he could be much closer to him.
Then it would be better to get sick, go into remission, and live a long and happy life. This situation would have brought families, parents, fathers together, maybe. There are only about 3% of those poor fathers lying there. But there are very few dads left alive.
Yes, there are moms who are alone.
And there are moms who are alone, yes. Just completely alone, with no one. That's probably the hardest thing. No one to talk to, no one at all. Not even someone to run to the store for you. It's simple, yeah, but there are people like that.
Markoshka knows that we love him.
Yeah, I would. Kiss him, and that's it. He would just understand me, without any words.
Why do you think so many parents can't handle this kind of tragedy? Some end up divorcing, some fight with each other. Some leave their partner alone with this pain and just walk away.
Well, usually it's because the man doesn't realize what's happening. But usually it's more often the men who do this. Well, usually. But it's a responsibility for both of us. It's not just one person's responsibility. I mean, I was also scared to go to the hospital. Not good at preparing for things, so it was kind of nerve-wracking for me. But then you just go.
Yeah, the first time was really stressful for my husband when I told him to take my place. It was stressful, really stressful, but he went. He just had to overcome his fears. I mean, he understood that help and support were needed too. But now he's really grateful that at some point I asked him to take my place at the hospital. He says, at least I got to spend time with Mark.
Yeah, I spent quite a lot of time, about 4. I don't remember exactly, but 4 years. I spent a lot of time with him. Other dads with healthy kids don't spend that much time with their children. Well, most of them just don't. That's how it is. That's the first thing. And secondly, from what I hear, the reason this happens is because of divorces and disagreements. A woman always protects her man in the hospital room. I say, take some time off, use your vacation, take 2 weeks to rest. You still have a year left to stay here. Well, I know how long you have to stay there. You could be there for a year, maybe 2, maybe even 3. It's not like you came here just for 2 weeks. But no, he just makes more money, so why would he take a break? I don't know, it's just a bunch of excuses.
We worked out a system for ourselves. So while the dog was in the hospital, I worked from home, then I would switch out and he would go to work after me. That's just how it was. Good for him. He wasn't afraid to take responsibility and share it.
Well, how else could it be? I just don't get it. Personally, I don't understand how it could be any other way. First of all, like I told you, I had an example with this same diagnosis. I've known about it for quite a while now. 10 years, actually. More than 10 years. And there, too, my friend showed by example how it should be done. I did the same.
That's how it is.
By example. How else could it be? You just go through the motions and don't really live. If we don't go to the hospital, then we won't be at home either, basically. You can't just sit around here, right? Dad hardly ever lies down, honestly, very rarely. But some people do. Well, maybe from the floor, I guess. I even remembered there were legends about me. Like, look, in the infectious disease ward, that's where Mark's dad is lying. And he handles everything.
That's for sure.
It's not hard for me to lie down.
Well, I've learned how to cook pasta with F.
Yeah, or guess I worked.
Really love pasta, yeah. Dad learned how to cook it.
Since Mark was born, we kind of had an agreement. I was actually afraid to be a dad. To be a bad dad, something like that. Of course, that's obvious. But being a bad one? I had Sundays. That was my day.
Dad's day.
That's what it was called. And at night, when he was little, if he needed to be fed, his mom never got up. I was always the one who got up. Always. There was never a time when my wife got up and went to feed him at night, so...
Yeah, that's responsibility. He took that on right from when Mark was born, not just when he got sick.
Of course, that's just a drop in the ocean for a woman. A woman would probably want a bit more help. Something he could help out with. What advice would I give to parents? At the very least, you need to go through this journey together. That's probably the most important advice. It'll be easier, less stressful that way. It'll be so much easier, so much less stressful. Because, for example, when I was in the hospital for the transplant, and you can't leave your 2x2 meter room for 21 days or however long it is, you can only go to the bathroom, and then you have to go through a full sanitization process. It's so tough, and at the same time, we had to raise money for just one tabcasemer injection. And if a woman is there alone, it's impossible for her to do the fundraising.
Yeah, you need to get documents, some certificates, all sorts of paperwork. If, for real, only one parent is there, or if a mom is left alone, how is she supposed to handle all of this? She can't leave her child, and she still needs to get money for medicine for these absolutely essential medications. You have to raise money for that, too. Yeah, together we're stronger.
Yeah, and even with the same medications, it's easier for kids to get through chemo when their dads are there. Well, of course, I'm speaking from my own experience, but for me, it really was always easier to handle.
Mark was a real tough little soldier.
There were no incidents at all during the main treatment. Nothing ever happened when he went with his dad. I don't know why. At the very least, someone needs to step in and take over for a couple of days sometimes.
It's such a psychologically tough moment.
It's a psychological moment, even. Missing 2 days won't hurt him. 2 or 3 days. At least a woman can take a normal shower, not just 5 minutes before lights out, and the shower stall door doesn't even close. If not a hotel, not even close. The conditions are good, but it's not a hotel. You're not there on vacation, I don't know. Yeah, my friends and acquaintances here are amazed that I could even do this. They can't even imagine themselves going to the hospital. I tell them, well, life will make you go to the hospital if you have to.
It's just that probably when a man says that, he's scared. And you can think about it. It's scary for a woman, too. It's just that probably as mothers, our kids are closer to us, so we just go ahead and do it. We're really scared, too. That's why men shouldn't be afraid either. They should help, get involved, and take responsibility, even when they're scared.
There's also this thing. This particular man who doesn't want to, he doesn't know how fate will turn out for his child. So that it doesn't end up with him regretting later the time he didn't spend at the hospital. I actually know people like that. I just know them. But then, as parents, I don't know.
Later, they're kicking themselves. Yeah, really beating themselves up.
Why not just once, just one time? There's so little time. Time just slips away.
We have to understand that we live here and now. We don't know if tomorrow will even come, especially if a child is suffering from cancer. So you need to live as close as possible. Try to be there every minute, every second, whenever you can.
Some parents, some fathers, even moved there from other cities, rented apartments, and found jobs. I saw it myself. I even know for a fact that it happened. Families, and they started living there.
Closer, near, yes.
And he would come there, yes, sit, and she would run around those little houses. There are these houses, daytime ones. What are they called?
Little houses.
Little houses. Ah, right. They're called little houses. Well, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
She would cook food there and give it to the child. All right, and she even fed Dad right there in that room. Well, there are families like that too.
Good for them.
Back then, that's really a prime example. He didn't try to look for help with some problem. He just got rid of the problems. He moved, and there were no more problems. And he was just a taxi driver. He didn't make a lot of money. He was a taxi driver. In his own city, wherever that was, I don't remember where he's from, they just packed up and moved. He became a taxi driver in Minsk. Well, you know, it's just Minsk.
There's always a way out.
There's always a way out.
You can always find a reason, yeah. When we don't want to do something, we look for excuses. But there's always a way out, and you can resolve the situation.
Well, it's always easier, I don't know, when... And a woman starts fighting for her child. Well, I don't know. How do you fight? Would that even apply to that situation? When a man is lying in the hospital room doing something smart, he catches himself thinking how wise he is, that he should give some advice, that he can handle it. People have asked me for a lot of advice about how I handle their treatment in some way. Unfortunately, no one listens to him. I don't have a medical degree, so no one will listen to me. But, as practice shows, to this day, all my predictions should have been listened to. And many children would be here now. Well, I just told people, you know, it's better not to do that. Because I've already been through this. My parents, Larissa gave me a lot of advice about what not to do, and I realize now that it was unnecessary. But now, for some reason, people just don't want to listen.
She didn't want to either, and we didn't listen either.
Well, the doctor does warn you. The doctor always says there's a risk. Basically, it's that kind of hospital, a tough hospital. They change doctors all the time. All the time. They're the ones to blame, going around and pushing oncology on the kids. That's what I mean. I just can't stand it. How can that be? What kind of doctor does that? The doctor just does their job, prescribes chemo. How could they be at fault?
In addition to that, as well.
They didn't even come up with the protocol, right? Germany developed the protocol. There you go. A lot of people decide to go to another country for treatment, but that doesn't always give much of a result either. Yes, for some illnesses, it does help. Results. For example, something like eye cancer. They basically don't treat it here at all, or if they do, I don't know about it. But in Switzerland, they treat it really well. But for diseases like neuroblastoma, the statistics are bad both here and there. People chase after foreign medicine. Maybe it's better over there. I don't know. I've never been there. I've never been treated there, and I don't plan to be.
I know that you can't bring yourself to throw out Mark's things from your home. Has anyone tried to make you do it? And have you ever thought, like, after a certain amount of time has passed since he was gone, that when that time comes, you'll finally be able to do it?
There was a moment when I started to realize, like, I felt bad when I looked at it when the little table was there. And in that moment, I decided, that's it. I need to put it away. My husband saw the video. He called me right away and said, put it back. My friends sometimes said to me too, Tanya, if you want, we'll come over and help. But you know, I only put away a part, just a little bit. I literally just moved the little table, probably moved his things from our closet to another closet. But all the other things stayed where they were. And now they don't bother me at all. Honestly, I think I even like that they're still there on the shelves. So no, now nobody says anything about the stuff at all. By the way, not long ago, we donated some things to help kids at a boarding school. Or we got some new toys like markers, drawing pads, stuff like that. There were some games like that too. I sat down with my husband and said, let's give these to the kids who need them since they're new and still in their packaging. So only the new things, yeah, we gave those to the kids, but the rest is still just sitting there.
Honestly, I didn't even think about it until you asked. They're
just sitting there, just like they always have.
Like it's supposed.
So, are there no deadlines right now?
Yeah, some people have superstitions about keeping things at home. It's just a thing. It's nothing special. It's just an object. It's not some kind of totem. It's not an icon. It's just a thing, simply an object. Some marker, maybe he never even held a marker in his hands. I don't even think about it. There's a nightstand over there. I don't know if they threw out the diapers from it or not. But that's always there. The diapers were just sitting there. That's how I used to store the diapers. If needed, I could quickly change them right next to me, just like that. I don't know if there are any left or not. No, some kind of...
There is actually quite a bit more to see.
Things just sit there. They're just things.
Yeah, we don't have anything like that. They just sit there, like that's how it's supposed to be. I even tell my kids, my son is already in his 19th year. I say, well, my grandkids will need it soon, or maybe someone else will find it useful. We pass some things on to my wife's sister. She has a little girl. We don't really have that thing where you say, oh, I'll give it away, or on the contrary, I need to throw it out. Everything just kind of works itself out on its own.
But what about all that advice about needing to throw things away? So you don't live by God's laws? I always ask, have you even read the Bible? None of them have really read it properly. And that's that. That's the end of the conversation.
They say time heals, but looking at my guest today, I realized it's not time that heals, it's making a decision. The decision not to give up. The decision not to look for someone to blame and not to turn your life into an endless obituary. Tatiana and Andre committed a crime in the eyes of Nenny. They stayed alive. They didn't throw away Mark's things, but they also didn't turn his death into some kind of cult of suffering. They proved that family isn't just about celebrating holidays together, but also about taking shifts at the ICU when one relieves the other so their loved one doesn't lose their mind. And I have one question for you. What do you think? Is there any correct, officially established, universally accepted period for grieving? And do we have the right to judge those who choose to move forward instead of burying themselves in the grave? Share this video with those who feel like there's no way out of their situation right now. Write words of support for our heroes in the comments. I assure you, they read them. Your sincerity means a lot to them. It will matter more than any morning etiquette. This was Anastasia Yakusheva and the project Uncomfortable to Discuss. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss conversations about what really matters. Live in the moment. See you in the next episode.